everyone. Hello everybody. How are you? Hope all of you are in a good health. Today we will talk about summary of main points in our subject. Today we'll talk about plant needs. Okay, do you think what the plant needs to can grow? Any plant need what to can grow? I think any plant need many things to can grow. Plant needs sunlight, need carbon dioxide, and need water to can grow. So it needs sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water. Okay, what's the structure of the plant? Plant consists of leaves, stem, and roots. Leaves, stem, and roots. So the plant structure: leaves, stem, roots. What the needs of the plant to can grow? Sunlight, carbon dioxide, water. To produce what? To produce oxygen and glucose. So the plant need something to produce another. Need sunlight, carbon dioxide, water to produce oxygen and glucose. The plant can grow without leaves? No. The plant can grow without stem? No. The plant can grow without roots? No. So from the basic need for the plant, it's a structure: leaves, stem, and roots. And it needs basic needs like sunlight, carbon dioxide, water. Why? Plant can make their own food by something or process called photosynthesis process. And to make photosynthesis process, plant need sunlight, carbon dioxide, water. Okay? Why? To produce oxygen and glucose. Sugar, glucose. Oxygen, so the plant to produce or release oxygen and produce sugar, glucose. Photosynthesis process: greens use their leaves. The leaves absorb sunlight and carbon dioxide. So which part of the plant absorbs sunlight and carbon dioxide? The leaves. They combine this with water taken by the roots. So the result will be sugar, glucose. During photosynthesis, plant release oxygen into air to us to breathe. So we take our oxygen from the releasing of the plant. Okay? The structure of the plant: roots. Roots fix the plant into the soil. And absorb water and minerals from the soil to go up to the plant. Okay, what about with root hairs? The roots have hairs. Why? To increase the amount of the absorbed water. Increase this, put red line under increase the amount of the absorbed water. Okay? Number 2, stem. What about the stem? Stem gives the plant support, gives the leaves support. So the stem is the support part inside the plant. Water and nutrients transported and moves up and down to the rest of the plant through the stem. Inside the stem we have tubes called vessels. Especially xylem. Stem come in variety form like wood stem, like trunks. Trunks have wood stem, shrubs, and upright stem, the flower only, upright stem. Climbing stem in grapes, climbing stem, grapes. Look, climbing stems. Tuber stem like potato. Tuber inside the soil, called underground, extend underground, called tuber, like potato. Runners extend above the ground or along the ground. Runners stem run along or above the ground. Okay? Leaves. The most important function of the leaves make food because they absorb sunlight and carbon dioxide. Yes, by photosynthesis process it will produce what? Produce oxygen and sugar, the food for the plant. Inside the leaves there is many kinds of it. We have narrow leaves, looks like needles. Okay, looks like needles, called narrow leaf. Narrow needles like pine. Wide, look, it's so wide. Wide leaves. And we have tiny holes on the surface of the leaves. We call it stomata. Look, at the surface of the leaves we have tiny holes called stomata. Called what? Stomata. What's the function of stomata? Stomata allow exchange of gases, allow to produce oxygen and absorb carbon dioxide. Okay? And the leaves contain something called chlorophyll. Chlorophyll gets the green color of the plant. The chlorophyll inside the leaves get the green color of the plant. Okay? We have transport system inside the plant like our transport system inside our body. But at first we will talk about transport system in the plant. Transport system in the plant consists of vessels called xylem and phloem. Xylem contain water and nutrients. So the water and nutrients go up or down? Yeah, water and nutrients goes from the roots to reach the leaves, so it will goes up. So xylem moves water and nutrients up from the roots to the leaves. What about the vessel of phloem? Vessel means a tube. Phloem vessels take the food. Where is the food formed? The food formed inside the leaves. So it will go up or down? Yeah, it go down to stem and roots to all other parts of the plant. So the phloem take the sugar or glucose to another part of the plant, so it goes down. So xylem carry water and nutrients. Phloem carry food. Xylem carry water and nutrients. Xylem, water and nutrients up to the leaves. Phloem take the food down to parts of the plant. Okay? This is the transport system of the plant, consists of two vessels, xylem and phloem. Look at xylem. It has two directions inside it or one direction? Yeah, xylem has one direction. It only goes up, so it has one way. But the phloem, exactly like xylem, it has one way. It go only down. There is no two ways inside it. So vessels of transport system of the plant has one way or one direction. Okay? When I ask you water and nutrients taken up by what? So by no. Okay, by what? By xylem. Glucose sugar carried by what? Downward by phloem. Xylem, phloem. Okay, look. We have transport system, but it has name. It has name called circulatory system. Our transport system called circulatory, but inside the plant called transport system only. Inside the plant consists of vessels called phloem and xylem, but inside us called arteries and veins. It consists of blood vessels and heart. But inside the plant, it's vessels only, no blood vessels. Transport nutrients and oxygen to all our body. It consists of arteries, veins. What's the difference? Arteries rich in oxygen, but the veins rich in carbon dioxide. Arteries start from the heart and go through all body to give the all body parts by oxygen. But the veins take carbon dioxide. Arteries and veins. Arteries rich in oxygen and nutrients, but the vein reaching carbon dioxide. So what's the difference? Arteries reaching oxygen, vein reaching carbon dioxide. Okay, it's like the transport system inside the plant. It has one way. Yeah, arteries or artery take the oxygen from the heart and distributed it to all body parts. From the heart to all body parts. But the vein take the carbon dioxide from the body parts and return back to the heart. So arteries has one way, vein one way, so the vessels inside the human circulatory system have one way. What are the similarities between circulatory system and transport system? Both have vessels transport sugar and gases. Sugar like nutrients and gases, carbon dioxide and oxygen. Both have one-way vessels. The vessels that inside the plant xylem phloem and vessels inside us like vein and arteries, both of them have one-way vessels. Okay? What's the difference? You know the difference that the plant has phloem and xylem. The xylem take water and nutrients and go up to all the body parts, but the phloem take the nutrients or the sugar to the roots and the stem. But inside us we have blood vessels called veins and artery reaching oxygen, but the vein reaching carbon dioxide. Look at this picture. Number 1 called what? It's go to the heart. So it's what? Look, vein or artery. Yeah, I can hear you. It's goes to. Yeah, I can hear you. It goes from the heart to the lung to go out. So it's what? This through what? Vein contain what? Carbon dioxide. But here from the lungs it goes the heart to go to all body parts. So this artery carry oxygen. Okay. Vessel number what? Transfer blood reaching carbon dioxide. 1. But which reaching oxygen? 2. Vessel number 1 and 2 belongs to what? Sure, circulatory system. I can hear you. Supers. Okay. Okay, the next topic called ecosystem. Do you know what does it mean by ecosystem? Look around you. You have non-living things and you have living things around you. Like inside your rooms, you have plants and you have chair, you have bed. Super. So you have non-living like chairs, tables, laptop, lamps, and you have living things like you and the plant. So any areas that contain living and non-living organisms interact with each other called ecosystem. So what does it mean by ecosystem? Community that contain living and non-living. Community that contain living and non-living. Community that contain living and non-living. This is called ecosystem. Okay, what's the main source of energy on the earth? Look around you. What's the main or primary source of energy on the earth? It's exactly the sun. Yes, the sun is the primary source of energy on the earth. In this concept, we have to know what does it mean by producer, consumer, and decomposer. The first one called producer. Producer means organisms that can make their own food. Organisms that can make their own food. So I can hear you. Which organisms that can make their own food? The plant. So most producers are plants. Organisms use energy from the sun to make their own food. Through the process called, don't forget, photosynthesis. Don't forget this photosynthesis process. So all producers considered as plants. Why? When I ask you, give reason. Plant called producer because they can make their own food by itself or by using photosynthesis process. The second one called consumer. What does it mean by consumer? Consumer means that living organisms that can feed on plant. Consumers may all consumer living organisms that can feed another living organism. Maybe on the plant, maybe on another animal. Look at this pyramid. It illustrates that the first step it's a producer because they can make their own food by photosynthesis process like grasses. So the energy will transfer from what? From the plant when the rabbit eats the plant. So the energy transfer from the plant to the rabbit. So the rabbit can feed on the plants. The energy flowing from what? The rabbit to the plant or from the plant to the rabbit? Yeah, I can hear you. When the rabbit eat it, so the energy transfer from the plant inside the rabbit. Okay, when we have snakes, so the snake can feed on the rabbit. So the energy transfer from the rabbit to the snake. Then the eagle come and eat the snake. So the energy transfer from the snake to the eagle. So eagle, snake and rabbit, all of them called consumer. Consumer means they can feed on another living organism because they cannot make their own food. Okay? And the energy will transfer from what? From producer to consumer. What does it mean by primary consumer? Means living organisms that depend on plant. Living organisms that depend on plant in their food. They're called primary consumer. Primary consumer, the living organisms that only feed on plant. Only feed on plant. When I ask you snake primary, no snake, no primary consumer. When I ask you eagle primary, no eagle, no primary consumer. Okay? We have three types of consumers: primary, secondary, and tertiary. Okay? What about decomposers? Decomposers feed on remains of dead animal or dead plants. The living organisms feed on dead animal or dead plants. Living organisms feed on dead animals or dead plants and take the nutrients back to the soil. Take the nutrients back to the soil. So when the animal die or when the plant die, the decomposer come to take the nutrients from it and return it to the soil. After the soil take the nutrients, we can plant on it again and the plant grow again, and we will repeat the cycle of producer, consumer, and decomposer. Okay? Thank you. We know that ecosystem is what? Community or area contain living and non-living interact with each other. And we know that we have producer, consumer, decomposer. And producer, that living organisms that make their own food by themselves by photosynthesis process like plant. Consumer, divided into three types: primary, secondary, and tertiary. And the primary, that feed on plant directly. The producer, the primary consumer, the living organisms that directly feed on the plant. So it's called primary. Okay, look here. Energy flowing from the sun. So the sun give its energy to the plant to make photosynthesis process, to make their food, to reach to the soil again by decomposer. You know that. We have food chain. Look, this is called food chain. This is called what? Food chain. It starts from the sun. The sun gives its energy to the plant. Plant make photosynthesis process, and the another animal get or feed on the plant, so the energy transfer from the plant to the grasshopper, and then the mouse come feed on the grasshopper, so the energy transfer from grasshopper to the mouse. Okay, and the snake come eat that mouse, so that energy transfer from the mouse to the snake. Then eagle come to feed on the snake, or that energy transfer from the snake to the eagle. Then the decomposer come and feed on the dead animal or the dead eagle and return back the nutrient to the soil, and we plant again on the soil, and so on. So the food chain, it describe the energy flowing. Food chain describe energy flowing from producer till decomposer, from producer till decomposer. Okay, food chain, it's one linear set. هي one linear set of feeding relationship and movement of energy. Feeding relationship, movement of energy. Feeding relationship, movement of energy. So it's called food chain. When we have many feeding relationships, so we have to know food web. When we have interconnected food chain together, so it's called food web. It's more greater or larger than one food web. It's one food chain. It's interconnected food chains. We have many chains, so it's called food web. Okay, look, there's not only one chain, there's many chains inside it. We have this one chain, 2, 3, 4, so we have many chains interconnected together. That's called food web. Okay, start from the grass. The mouse can feed on the grass, grasshopper feed on the grass, and rabbit feed on the grass. All of them feed on the grass, so have many chains. And the fox can feed on the rabbit. Okay, owl can feed on the mouse. Frog eat the grasshopper. Then the owl can feed on the frog and mouse. So we have interconnected this chain, interconnected with this chain. So many food chains together called food web. Many food chain interconnected together called food web. What the function of decomposer? Recycle nutrients back to the ecosystem through process called decomposition, from its name, decomposer, decomposition. What does it mean by decomposition? Recycling nutrients back to the soil. Recycle nutrients back to the soil or back to the ecosystem. This is called decomposition process. When I ask you fungi, bacteria, worms, and millipedes considered from, all of them considered of decomposer, right? I can hear you. How does decomposition process occur? We have two steps. The first one, by living organisms called scavengers. Second one, the decomposers come to back nutrients back to the ecosystem. How? Look, scavengers organisms feed on the remains of dead animal and plants. Scavengers breaks down the dead animal or the big body into small pieces. Break them down into small pieces. What are the scavengers? Vulture, hyenas, crabs, cockroaches, houseflies. All of them called scavengers. And then when they break down the big body into small pieces, the decomposer come, like snails, slug, earthworm, fungi, bacteria, and return or use the nutrients returned it back to the ecosystem. Again, at the first, when the plant or animal die, their animal called scavengers, vulture, hyenas, crabs, cockroach, housefly, break the body into small pieces. After this, the small pieces come The decomposer, like snails, earthworm, slugs, fungi, bacteria, come and take the small pieces, break it down, and change it into nutrients, return it back to the ecosystem or the soil. And the plant take it again, plant it again onto the soil to make another cycle. Okay? This is called decomposition process. Occurs by two steps. The first one by scavengers, second one by decomposers. So, decomposers recycle nutrients. Can we recycle wastes? Yeah, we can recycle waste, sure. We use waste material and make new products. This is called recycling. Like recycling plastic, glass, waste, paper, metal, organic. So, when we take wastes to make new products, that's called recycling. So recycling using waste material to make new products. Okay, now we will talk about food web changes. What about food web changes? Look, we have marine environment underwater. We have producer, consumer, and decomposer underwater like above. Look, we have shark, tigerfish, different types of fish, coral, algae, zooplankton, clam, sea star, sea urchin. All of these living organisms or marine living organisms. Okay? We have, where is the plant? Here, algae. So the producer is algae. Producer in the ocean or in marine environment called algae. We have many living organisms. Zooplankton, it's micro living organisms feed on the algae. Sea urchin, it's living organisms feed on algae. Clam, living organisms feed on algae. Then coral, it's not a plant. Coral, it's living organism, marine living organisms. Coral, it's not a plant. Why? When I ask you why or give reason, coral not considered as a plant, because they cannot make their own food. Okay? But the algae can floating on the surface of the coral. Then we have different type of fish that feed on coral. Parrotfish, tigerfish, butterfly fish, all of them feed on coral. Then the shark come and eat all of different types of fish, and sea star also. So with the primary consumer here, primary consumer, that living organisms can feed on the plant only. So the clam feed on the plant only, the plankton feed the plant only, sea urchin feed the plant only. So sea urchin, the plankton, clam, the primary consumer underwater. Okay, which is that the top predator. Top predators means the large meat eaten animals. Animal can eat large meat. The shark can eat large meat, large parrotfish, tigerfish, butterfly fish. So the shark considered as top predator. Okay? Okay, so the algae producer eaten by zooplankton, clam, and sea urchin. So they call primary consumers. Eaten by sea star. Sea star eat clam only. Then coral eat zooplankton only. Then butterfly and tigerfish eat the coral. Top predator shark feed on different type of fish and sea star. Okay, now you have to know we must conserve our ecosystem. Conserve means save. Save our ecosystem. Pollution affects all ecosystems, especially marine habitat. Why? There is two reasons: overfishing, throwing wastes and plastic in oceans. Overfishing, throwing wastes on plastic in ocean. This cause pollution or large amount of pollution in marine living habitats or marine ecosystem. Okay, affect all marine living organisms negatively. Sure. Do you think overfishing from human? Yeah, that's because of human. and also throwing waste, throwing plastic considered as human activities. Okay, we have island. Okay, island so clean and clear and pure habitat, doesn't suffer from pollution. Exactly. Marine organisms have healthy environment. How? Because inside the island the people use different conservation program, control the overfishing and avoid throwing wastes, control overfishing and avoid throwing wastes. Another concept called population or topic called population. What does it mean by population from this picture? Look, population means the number, population, the number of living organisms of one type of a species. Again, number of living organisms of one type of a species living in an area together. So, number, population, number of organisms of one type of a species, number of humans or number of animals or number of plants. So, it must be from one type of a species. It must be from one type of a species. Okay? Population number of living organisms of one type of species living in an area. Okay? Do you think how can climate affect population? Okay. When we talk about humans, when the humans live in an area and this area is suitable climate to them, so the population will increase or decrease? Will increase. So if it's suitable for living organisms, the population will increase. If it's unsuitable for living organisms, the population will decrease. If the climate changes, it's no good for us. So we have to move from this ecosystem or move from this climate to go another climate, so the population or number of people here will decrease. But if the weather is good and climate changes is suitable for me, so I can live here and can reproduce here, so the number of people will increase, so the population will increase. Okay, so the climate affects the population. Why? Because it can increase or decrease according to the climate changes. Okay, important note for you, all species depend on each other for survive and find their food. We depend on animal to find our food, and animal depend on the plant to find their food. So all the species depend on each other for survive and find their food. Thanks a lot